Good evening, everyone. My name is Fred Prejean. I'm chairman of this organization called Move the Mindset. And just to give you an inkling of who we are, I'd like to tell you our mandates, first of all. To educate the citizens of Lafayette about the history, including the Civil War, Reconstruction, the Lost Cause ideology, the Jim Crow era, and the Civil Rights era. Second, to expose the false narratives, misconceptions, and attitudes that continue to create distrust and division in the city of Lafayette. And third, to eradicate obstacles to healthy community relations in Lafayette. Our core values are integrity, respect, unity, and cooperation. Now our main purpose for today is to relate to you the contents of a press release that has just been distributed to the Mayor President of the city, the Parish Council, and the United Daughters of the Confederacy. This press release reads as follows. Open letter to Mayor President Joel Robideau, the Lafayette City Parish Council, and the United Daughters of the Confederacy, Alfred Mouton, Chapter 1514. It is time for Lafayette Confederate Monument to come down. Our organization, Move the Mindset, and others have argued that its prominent downtown location on property owned by all Lafayette taxpayers is not appropriate. This statue was erected in support of white supremacy almost 60 years after the Civil War ended, during the Jim Crow era, when Southern whites relegated African Americans to second-class citizenship and deprived them of their rights they gained after the Civil War. Recent events show that these statues are still rallying points for white supremacists, neo-Nazis, and others who espouse hatred, bigotry, and violence. These values have no place in our country or in our community. This monument should certainly not be the symbol in front of the Lafayette Office of International Affairs I'm pointing to, or any other public space that greets visitors to our city. As American historian Eric Foner observed, historical monuments are an expression of power, an indication of who has the power to choose how history is remembered in public places. Foner goes on to say Confederate statues only honor one part of our past. Where are the statues in the former slave states honoring very large part of the Southern population, beginning with 4 million slaves that sided with the Union rather than the Confederacy? Where are the monuments to the victims of slavery or to the hundreds of black lawmakers who, during Reconstruction, served in positions from U.S. senators and governors to justice of the peace and school board members? Excluding blacks from historical recognition has been the other side of history of glorifying the Confederacy. We don't want to deny history. We support the relocation of the statue to a museum where our full shared history can be told. We address this letter jointly to the city, parish, mayor, president, and council, and the local chapter of the United Daughters of the Confederacy. We are calling on these bodies to move the statue from this public space. We suggest the statue be returned to the local chapter of the United Daughters of the Confederacy or be moved to a museum. Whatever the decision regarding the ultimate placement of this Confederate statue, it's been called the Confederate statue when it really should be referred to as a Jim Crow symbol. It must be moved from the offensive, inappropriate location of public space that it currently occupies. Your immediate attention, review, and response to the request outlined is greatly appreciated. Please feel free to contact me if additional input and decision would be helpful to resolve this very important matter. And I'd like to thank a number of organizations who have joined us and are supportive of us. You're going to hear a 3-minute speech from each of them, but I'd like to announce who they are. Ms. Marja Broussard, President of the NAACP, Ms. Sally Donlin, President of Democratic Women of Acadiana, Reverend Carlos Harmon, pastor of a local church, Ms. Jacqueline Phelps, Vice President of Indivisible Acadiana, Mr. Kirk Pichoni, President of Blue Democrats of Acadiana, and Leslie Bork, President of Blue, Lady Dems. How could I forget that? Thank you very much. I'm going to turn this over to the Secretary of Move the Mindset, who is going to further introduce the speakers. Please stand by. They're going to speak for 3 minutes, so this will not last long. I know it's warm out here. I want to thank you very much for joining us, for being interested enough to be here, and I hope that you will support our cause.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out for this press release. My name is Frank Crocco. I am the Secretary of Move the Mindset, and I am really excited to see this crowd here today because I think taking down this statue is a long time coming. It is a symbol of hate and Jim Crow. If you look at your history, the statue was put up during a period of 1900 to 1922. That's when most of these statues were put up. They were put up after Plessy versus Ferguson. They were put up to scar and mark the land as symbols that segregation and Jim Crow was here to stay. And the next time they were put up was during the Civil Rights era as a backlash. So those who say that removing the statue is about erasing history do not know their history. This statue is not even about the Confederacy. It's about Jim Crow. Now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who is Marja Broussard, the President of the NAACP. Marja, would you please come up?
Good evening, and I am Marja Broussard, the President of the Lafayette NAACP Unit 6060. I'm delighted to be here tonight to join forces with many other organizations who have, as part of their mission, the eradication of all symbols of hatred, injustice, and to all threats to the peaceful tranquility of our community. I'm happy to see this diverse group of people standing here together boldly to say it is not about skin color of one person or another, but fairness has no skin color. We all know the history of the statue, which we stand here today. We understand the whole story, and because it's been widely disseminated how it was that a group of people fought to maintain the status quo of slavery. Slavery was the most abusive and wrongful system ever created in the annals of human history. Today we embark on a great task of righting that wrong. In 1922, the United Daughters of the Confederacy, it was wrong for them to take the memory of a white supremacist and paste the belief of this white supremacist, the value of this white supremacist, the desire of this white supremacist upon the face of our community in the name of heritage, in the name of history. It was wrong for the group to join forces with others, evil forces across the country in the 1920s, where was the onset of the Jim Crow laws being enacted, which formed the greatest unjust system of segregation ever known to any country on the face of this earth. It's wrong to install a perpetual symbol, a sign in the form of a statue to remain for people to remind people of the ideas once fought against our great country, and remains here a symbol of how things ought to be, or how things should be again. It is wrong to want America to be great again if the America that was so great was during the time of when white supremacists fought for what they believe was their rightful place, and that is supreme being of all people. It was wrong. Therefore, we desire, as you here tonight, the removal of this statue and any symbol in this community that leads to the divide, that continues the stigma of inferiority, which attacks minority and other people who think different, look different, act different than others who believe that they are supreme. The NAACP is the oldest civil rights organization in this nation, founded in 1909. We stand firm with Move the Mindset. We stand firm with Blue Acadiana, Indivisible Acadiana. We stand firm with the Democratic Women of Acadiana. We stand firm with you here today to do what it is that we can to lend our energies to bring about justice for all in our community. The NAACP mission has not changed from what it was 108 years ago, and that is to do what it is that we can, the original purpose of eliminating racial discrimination. Its members throughout the United States and the world are premier advocates for civil rights in our community. We believe the problem of the color line is just as important today as it was when W.E.B. Du Bois declared it in 1908. It is our prayer that the powers that be will do what is right and not allow some fabricated agreement to never take down the statue that never should have been erected in the first place. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Marjo. I'd like to introduce Sally Donlin, the president of Democratic Women of Acadiana.
Y'all better get closer to this mic. I'm here. Okay.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Sally Donlin, and I began the Democratic Women of Acadiana about 6 years ago as a social media platform to share progressive information and notices. And the story I have today is a personal one. Every family has a past, and my past here in Acadiana began when my ancestor, James McFarland, traveled from Virginia to the banks of the Teche in the early 1800s to take possession of a farm his father had given to him. He brought with him, according to family archival documents, 2 wagon loads of good furniture and 12 slaves. And that's the way the manifest read. The furniture listed first, as if sticks of wood held higher value than his fellow human beings. James's slaves worked the land, producing mostly sugarcane, mostly successfully, until they no longer belonged to my family because the Great War between the states ended the official practice of slavery in this country. Think of it, though. They no longer belonged to him. The fact that my family presumed to own human beings is loathsome and shameful to me. I had nothing to do with it, but still, I often think of what that must have meant. When it's 95 degrees and I have a headache, I think about working in sweltering fields. When I hold my child near and dear, I think about the agony of being denied that basic human need. These imaginings do not monopolize my thoughts, but they are always there, hovering at the edge of my psyche. The historic reality on which these imaginings are based is real as this hunk of concrete in front of which I stand, and nothing I can do will ever change it. But still, That reality constitutes my family's original sin by which I set my moral compass. I understand that relatively few white families today link back to actual slavery, but all of us link back to the laws and conventions that constituted slavery by another name, Jim Crow. Under Jim Crow, people of color were prevented from achieving the full freedom they deserved. The heritage of the Jim Crow era remains with us today and constitutes the original sin of all of us who give pride of public place to the symbols of the scorn and hatred that generated it. This statue behind me was erected under Jim Crow in the 1920s to intimidate our fellow citizens and human beings and to remind them that we still consider them slaves. We are powerless to change the past, but we hold the power to free our communities of these symbols of hatred and condescension today. We hold the power to place these symbols in museums where they belong, to ensure that the context of the times they represent are more fully explained to all who are truly interested in history over intimidation. We ask that these monuments to Jim Crow be relocated, not destroyed, as communities around the world have done in response to the evolution of social justice. Relocation of this statue will go a long way toward the reconciliation that we all need. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. I'd like to introduce Reverend Carlos Harvin of New Beginnings Christian Church.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We're going to make today that day. Today is the day. I'm so glad to be in your presence. I heard somebody say, where are the ministers? Well, I want you to know the ministers are here. Martin Luther King would be here. We're here. I see Father Dallas Benoit here. Bishop Larry Lloyd is here. Minister Takuna Shabazz is here. My brother from the First Presbyterian Church is here. I saw another minister somewhere around here, Minister Joe Dupree. So we're in the house. Because we know little prayer, little power. No prayer, no power. Much prayer, much. We're going to pray this statue down. That's what happened to the walls of Jericho. They came tumbling down. And I want you to know you've got power in your feet. When you march for what's right, when you march for what's just, walls come tumbling down. Alfred, you're going to start seeing this statue start moving. I know he's got Mardi Gras beads around his neck. He's in his last parade. Everybody say bye-bye, Alfred. He just had to go out with a bang. When I first moved to Lafayette in 1993, there was a television show on AOC called The Klan in Acadiana. Some of you remember that. And the host actually wore a Klan hood. You didn't see his face. So a group of us marched, we sang, we prayed, and they left town. Well, as I look around this park, and I think we need to rename this park too. I see black and white. I see a rainbow coalition. And I see Martin Luther King smiling from where he is. Because the sons of former slaves, the daughters of former slaves, the sons of former slave owners, and the daughters of slave owners are sitting around this park together at the table of sisterhood and brotherhood. Let's give God the praise. So as I take my seat, that's rare for a minister to say after just 2 minutes. This statue's got to come down. And if somebody just has to put a statue here, I can think of some other statues that can go up here. Let's take Alfred down, and let's put up Frederick Douglass. Let's take Alfred down and put up Harriet Tubman. Let's take Alfred down and put up Martin Luther King. Oh. Let's take this statue down and put up Heather Heyer. A 32-year-old white woman in Charlottesville who lost her life so that you and I could be free. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Reverend Carlos. I want to call Jacqueline Phelps, the Vice President of Indivisible Acadiana, to the microphone.
My name is Jackie Phelps. I am the Vice President. Of Indivisible Acadiana. Our President, James Proctor, is out of town currently, or he would be here. He is serving his country. Indivisible Acadiana is the Lafayette, Louisiana, based branch of a national network of indivisible groups committed to fostering informed and active citizen participation in the democratic process. Our mission is to challenge policies and practices that threaten the entry, prosperity, and security of our nation, nations around the world, and our planet itself. The Indivisible movement is premised on the belief that protecting our values, our neighbors, and our communities demands action to protect and promote the values of inclusion, tolerance, and fairness. Today, Indivisible Acadiana is proud to stand united with Move the Mindset, Blue Acadiana, NAAC Lafayette Unit number 6060, and the Democratic Women of Acadiana to propose that now is the time for the removal and relocation of the Alfred Mouton statue from its current location in the center of downtown Lafayette. Just as Indivisible Acadiana promotes active citizen participation in the democratic process on issues of the day, we also recognize that we are participants in the ongoing history of our nation. The Alfred Mouton statue and monuments like it have meant many things over the course of that history, and they seem to be talking on a new and more sinister meeting today. In 1865 and immediately thereafter, these monuments may have served a valid and valuable purpose of memorializing the dead on both sides of the Union and the Confederate conflict, our nation's bloodiest war. These statues have a place on Civil War battlefields, museums devoted to the history of the Civil War, and similar places where they may be appropriately contextualized and made to serve an educational purpose. But the Alfred Mouton statue and others like it also memorialize a darker part of our history, one that echoes eerily today, particularly after the recent events in Charlottesville, Virginia, which resulted in the death of Heather Heyer and injury to many others. The Mouton statue and others erected by various groups, particularly at the height of the Jim Crow era of racism in the 1920s, served a single purpose to emphasize values of white supremacy and power over African American citizens in the community. It is unclear whether members of the Mouton family approved then or approved today of the nefarious use of the memory of Alfred Mouton. Indeed, some members of the Mouton family have urged that the statue be relocated. Today, these monuments have become a rallying point for white supremacist, neo-Nazi, and other groups that threaten the unity and indivisibility of our community. Consistent with our group's name, we propose that the statue be removed and relocated to a more suitable location. We recognize that the removal of a statue will only be a first step, but a necessary step towards community healing that can only come through education, dialogue, and understanding of what these statues represent and why they are harmful to so many today. With this in mind, Indivisible Acadiana joins with others in the request to take down this statue, that we may as a nation and a community be indivisible with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. I'd like to call Kirk Piccioni, President of the Blue Democrats of Acadiana, to the mic.
Thank you very much. As the president of Blue Acadiana, it gives me great pleasure to lend our support to Move the Mindset in its attempt to try to have this statue relocated. I saw one of the signs earlier somebody was holding up. It talks about empathy. It's right over there. And it reminds me of a few Sundays ago, the priest I was listening to was talking about the decline of empathy in our country and how he felt it locally. Now, empathy, of course, is the ability to understand and share in someone else's feelings, even though that person may be very different from you and have a very different background. So I would ask everyone who can hear my voice to step out of their own shoes for just a moment and step into the shoes of just an average middle-class black person living in the South. You work and you pay your taxes like everyone else, and your tax money goes to support and maintain the government just like everyone else's. And yet, when you walk into a government building for representation or for services, there's a monument there standing outside to someone who fought to enslave your race. When you go to court seeking justice, there's a flag flying there representing the cause of enslaving your race. When you go to a public park, not unlike the public park that we're in today, you and all who pass by are greeted by an icon to someone who fought for that cause. It's time that America came to grips with its past peacefully. It's time that we take down the symbols of Jim Crow that continue to haunt our African American brothers and sisters and move these symbols into a museum where they belong. It's time that we let go of this dark chapter in our history. It's time that we show our empathy and do the right thing. Thank you.
We're going to close with some remarks from Fred Prejean, the president, the chairman of Move the Mindset. But first, I'd like to just lead us in a simple chant. So it's an easy one. You'll be able to pick it up quickly. What do we want? Take it down. When do we want it? Now. What do we want?
Take it down.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Take it down.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Take it down.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Take it down.
When do we want it?
Now.
All right, thank you.
Hi, my name is Rachel Foreman. I'm representing Lady Dems of Acadiana. Just wanted to say that we are behind this movement. We believe in it. We support it. I can't say anything any better than it's already been said. What I can say is that, you know, this is a horrible legacy, but even though we're faced with it, we don't have to buy it. You know, we can start over today with what's in our hearts, you know, and we might look at that and get mad, and we might want to fight, but what it really makes me want to do,
I want to mention that this month of August marks our 1 year anniversary of our organization, Move the Mindset. We started with one organization of about 7 people, and here we are today. Just look around. We are now not only accompanied by you and good people like you, we are now not only one organization, but instead we are made up of a collaboration of 5 organizations. Yeah. And if any of you belong to an organization that has not been named today, we'd love to have you join with us and support our cause. Bear in mind that a single press release to the city and the United Daughters of the Confederacy alone is not going to get this statue moved. It's going to take a lot more hard work. But you got to have a first step before you can have a second step. We are a peaceful, law-abiding group, and we will pursue every legal avenue available to us to achieve our goal. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Fred.